Hi everyone, welcome to InterviewPro. In the last video, we made name and feedback forms as required. We enabled submit button only when there is data in these two fields. Today, let's add the red border to this fields and also display error messages specifying what is the error and why the user is not able to submit the form. So let's go back. This is how we added a validator to the form controls. Now, so if you remember when we used template driven forms, we created a class called red border. I want to make use of this class. So let's go to input, which represents the username, and using class binding, I want to add this class red border. We want this class to be applied only when this input is invalid. We know there is a property called invalid on the feedback form, which will specify whether the whole form is valid or not. But how do we do that for a single control? So we saw how to get a single control from the form using get, right? We are going to make use of this now. So inside this class binding, I'll say feedback form dot get username dot invalid. So if you go to this, let me just fill some random data and submit the form. Go to inspect, console. We are logging form group and also the form control. This is for username. So if you look at this username form control, we have properties called invalid and valid. We have properties like touched and untouched as well. So not only to the entire form, we have these properties for each control as well. We have already discussed what these properties do when we talked about template driven forms. If you haven't watched that, I would recommend you to watch it, and I'll leave the link in the description. So let's make use of this touched. So we want to display this red border only when the user visits this input and for some reason he goes out without entering data. And we want to make use of this invalid if the data to check if the form control is valid or not. So let's go back. Along with invalid, just add touched. Let's go back. Now the form is empty. I clicked on it and I went to some other field or somewhere on the page. This form control is touched but no data is entered. So this is violating the validation rule, right? So that's why we are seeing the red border. Let's do the same for feedback also. Let me just copy this and paste it in the text area representing the feedback. Here the control name is feedback. Let's go back. Now I click on name, go out, I click on feedback, go out, we see the red borders. Not only red borders, it's good to have the error messages also. Let's add a span here with a message that says username is required. So we want to display this message only when this control is invalid, right? So we'll put the same condition here. Using ng if. So if this condition is true, only then this span will be visible on the screen, will be rendered on the screen. So I'll click on name and clicked outside. It displays the message username is required. Let's do the same thing for feedback as well. And replace the control name from username to feedback. Now we'll see the same thing for feedback as well. Okay, this should be feedback is required. So for username, username is required. For feedback, feedback is required. If you observe, we are using this dot get username multiple times. So let's refactor it a bit. To do that, we can add getters. So I'll just say get and I want to name it as username. This is going to be a function that returns feedback.get username. So this username, we need to use this dot feedback form dot get username. so that we can directly use username here. Instead of writing that whole get again, I can say username dot invalid, username dot touched. Let's go back to the screen. This works the same way. So we can do the same thing for feedback as well. Let me just copy paste, rename it to feedback. Now we can use this feedback instead of this get. This also works. So this is how you can display error messages based on the state of the control. I hope the concept is clear. If you like the content, please like, share and subscribe to InterviewPro. Thank you.